Okay, and hello and welcome. My name is Martin, and today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using a key to be able to get through the door. So you won't be able to get into the door unless you actually have or possess the key. So we're going to need a few things to be able to get this to work. Obviously, we're going to need to have a door. That door is going to need to be able to move. We need to have a cinematic attached to it, so then that way um, we can swing the door open and close. Now, for those who didn't watch my last video, go ahead and watch that. Now, the only thing that we're going to do different to the door is that we're going to actually tie, in the other one, we had the trigger box loose, like they were two separate items. There was the door, and then there was the trigger box itself that somebody had to be in contact with to be able to open the door. In this one, we're going to have the trigger box actually inside the door itself. So instead of it being separate from the door, when you move the door, the trigger box will move with it. Okay, so the very first thing obviously that we will need is the door. So we have created another door using the same techniques from before. I've created the level sequence using the same technique as before. So now let's go ahead and create, I guess the first step would be to go ahead and create the key. So in order to create the key, we're going to need to go back into our content folder. I'm going to drop out all the stuff that I'm in. There we go. So I'm back in the root folder. And what we want to do is we want to create what's called a blueprint class, an actor class. So now if you're going to have lots of keys, you might as well create a folder for it. So I'm going to create a new folder, and we're going to call this keys. And whoops, clicked too fast. There we go. So now let's go to keys. All right, so in here we're going to right click, we're going to go to blueprint class, and we're going to select actor. Here we're going to type, we're going to give this a name as Keycard underscore BP for blueprint. Once you have it created, go ahead and double click and open it up. And we're going to see the little representative of the root down there. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is we obviously need to create a static mesh. So let's go ahead and create a static mesh by going to add component and adding a static mesh. Let's rename this key, or key mesh if you want. So in that way you don't have too many things, just call it a key. So we'll call that key mesh. So once you've got the key mesh there, what we need to do is go ahead and add a static mesh to it. Honestly, I think the easiest thing here to do, if you don't have like a key that you can pull in from one of the packs that you've downloaded, you can actually create one. Now remember that there's two kinds of keys. There's ones that look like cards. So if you're going to, like, let's say a hotel room, or if you're working in a science lab or something like that, there's the key card that feels like it's got your ID and everything else on there, right? So it's got your information, and it's your card that gets you in. So there's a card, something like that could let you in, or you could have like something that looks like a skeleton key. So really you can make either one, but the card key is actually really easy to make. So let's go ahead and make that one real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a cube, drop it in there. I'm going to back up just a little bit so I can see the cube itself. There we go. Now from here we can go ahead and unlock this, and what we'll do is we'll squeeze it down, so then that way it looks more like a flat object, right? And usually with these things, they're going to look a little bit more rectangular. So let's squeeze this just a little bit. There we go. So that looks more like a credit card shape, or what you would expect to look like a card. And let's see, what else can we do? Okay, so I'm going to just speed this up because I took like something like 10 minutes to make this card. Basically what I'm doing is I'm grabbing a mesh, I'm going to add a material to it, I'm going to add a couple of other meshes, which is going to give me a place to be able to like write text. Honestly, that material right there is terrible. I just go into like a solid blue material later in the video. I do use a text box eventually. That text box will allow you to be able to put a name, or a picture, or whatever it is that you want. You'll see here that I'm actually going to turn this white. So then that way when the text lines up, it'll line up, you'll be able to see it through the card. The other thing I'm doing also is I'm adjusting each one of the meshes, and also when I brought in the text came in, because I brought it in underneath the static mesh, like inside the static mesh. It came in with the same weird dimensions that I had squeezed the static mesh to, and it looked absolutely crazy. And you can actually see a part of that here. You can see that I'm kind of struggling with like making the text the right shape, and then eventually what I do is I completely take the text out of it, and I make it even with the mesh. And then eventually what this does is after I go back and reset all the settings, like basically default the text, it eventually ends up looking like something. But yeah, this took like way too long. So here I go, I'm adding another text, but this time I didn't bring it in so we can see the text this time. And so I'll just take it, flip it. I'm gonna write the word blue inside the text, and then I'm going to make the card itself. I'm going to pick a material for it. I'm just adjusting sort of the heights and everything, and here I'm going to make the background material blue. So now we have a blue card. Okay, so now there can be no doubt. All right, so we have something that looks like a key card that's going to be blue. It's going to say blue on it. The character is going to see it that way. Now, the only other thing that's kind of cool that we could add to this would be like a little bit of a rotational movement. So let's go ahead and add component and hit rotate. A rotating movement. Let's add that in. And if you want to demo and see what that looks like, you can click the button up there that says simulate, and that will give you an idea of what your key is going to look like. Now, if you want to change the rotation, you can stop, hit rotating, and then come here and there's rotation rate, and maybe we can take that number and swing it down. Let's say 100, and let's put this. Let's play the simulate now, and indeed that is now slowing it down. So obviously, if you wanted it to rotate in different directions, so this makes sense for a card. Which is that cool like little spinning. So you can do this to anything that you're kind of alluding to the character. Hey, you can come and pick this up. So something like that would be really cool for the card. All right, so we'll take the simulation off. The only thing I want to do is the blue is sticking way too out in front. So let's push that back in a little bit. So I'm going to get the text render again, and let's push that back in. Okay, and then if we need to, let's hit the simulate. And that's good enough for now. This is just going to be a placeholder. It's a good placeholder, but if you wanted to, you could create a key, or you could find a key, or you can find a mesh somewhere that would be suitable for this. Okay, so once you've got the mesh ready, the next thing that we're going to want to do is create a variable. Now, what this variable is going to do is it's going to allow for the key to have a distinguished or its own number, and what that number is going to do is we're going to use that number to check against the door to make sure that we have the right key. So if you're going to use multiple keys, like a green key, a blue key, and a red key, the blue key will be labeled as a 0, the red key will be labeled as 1, and the green key will be labeled as 2. And then that way when you get to the door, if the door has the same label for the key, then it will allow the door to open. Otherwise, you could have, let's say, the blue key and you go to the green door and it would open. So you want to be able to distinguish the color of the door by giving, or the key to the right door by giving each one, both the key and the door, the same number. So let's do this now by creating a variable here inside the mesh. We're going to go ahead and call this key card value. So key card underscore value. Okay, and once you've done that, you'll see that it's created one down here. We're going to leave that unchecked, and instead of this being a Boolean, because we don't need this to be a yes, no, or a true, false, we actually need this to be an integer. And if we were to hit compile now, we would see that we have key card value. And if we had multiple key cards, we could sit there and we could say this card's value, blue, is going to be 1, or blue is going to be 2. And then if the door has that same number, you'll be able to open the door. All right, so from here, we actually need to go and set something up inside of the first person character. So let's go do that, and then we'll come back to the key card in the event graph and get the information for the card finished. Okay, so just hit compile and save, and let's go find your first person character. So we'll go to contents, we'll go to first person BP, we'll go to blueprints. There's our first person character. And with the first person character, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to create a new variable. And this variable is going to be an array. And the array is going to be a Boolean. So let's go ahead and create that. So let's say new variable. Okay. This new variable is going to be called Keycard. Okay. Keycard. Okay, so we need to have this named Keycard. The next thing we are going to leave this as a Boolean, but we need it to be an array. So to make it an array, you need to actually click on the button right here, drop down to where you actually see this thing that kind of looks like a tic-tac-toe board. That's actually meant to represent a list. And if you click on array, it becomes an array, and you'll see that over here. So it's still got the red color of the Boolean, but instead of it having a single thing, it's got multiple things. So it's saying, hey, it's more than one thing. So think of an array as a list. From there, once you've got that created, let's go ahead and hit compile. And inside the compile, this is where we're going to have the list of the different keys. So we're going to need to go ahead and, let's say, add a 0, a 1, and a 2. Now we're going to leave these unchecked because what's going to happen is when your character picks up a card, it's going to say, if the key's labeled as 0, it'll say, hey, it'll check this box and say, hey, they have this key. So the key will disappear, we'll just destroy it out of the game, so we don't have to put it into inventory, and then your character will have the information that it needs to be able to go and open that door without actually having the key take up a slot. So now that we have this, we can actually go back to the key itself, go ahead and hit compile, and in the keys blueprint, we are now able to, in the key, we're going to go to the event graph, and we're going to start writing the code that we need for the key. Now, one more thing that we need to add, we need to go ahead and add actually a collision box or a trigger box. So let's go ahead and add component. Let's add box collision, and let's make sure that that is surrounding the object and that it is sized somewhat to the shape of the object. There we go. And so this way, when our character runs into this box will create the overlap effect that we need, so that the characters the code will be triggered for picking up the key. So let's go ahead and hit compile. Now with the box selected, we want to go to event graph, and here we're going to right click and go into add event for box collision on begin overlap. So as soon as our character touches this box, we want this to happen. We want this to be cast to the first person player. So cast to first person character. Now the reason why we're doing this is because we don't want anything else to overlap with this box. So when us as the actor overlaps with this box, we will then get the function that's going to come after it. Alright, so the next thing that we need to do is pull off of here, and we need to bring in our keyboard. So let's go ahead and type in key. So get keycard. And remember that the keycard is what we set up inside of the first person character. So it's not this, it's not the keycard value, it's actually the keycard. So it's going to be the list of the different keys that that person has. And you can see it down here as the 0, the 1, and the 2. All right. From there, the next thing that we need to do is get an insert. Now what the insert is going to do is it's going to insert the value that we need for the key card and tell us which one of the three values we actually have picked up on, for the key. So in this box right here, it's going to get the key card value, which belongs to the key, right? So we're going to get that and say get key card value, and then that's going to tell it which one of the two. So right now this key card's value is set to 2. So if we had the door right now, and we were at the blue door, and this is the blue key, we would need the door to be also labeled as a 2, and we'll do that in a little bit. Now the next thing is we want to go ahead and say that this is being added, so that we're checking that yes, we now have access to door 2, and from there we go ahead and connect this to here, so it does that value, and then once we're done, we'd want to destroy the actor. So we actually want to destroy the key card because we're not picking it up, we're not putting it into our inventory. We are just going ahead and destroy actor, and there we go. So we should be able to hit compile and save. And so the code that we have now, so we'll look at the whole thing. We have our mesh, we have a trigger box, we have the event graph. In the event graph, we have when the trigger box is touched by the first person character, look at the list or get from the first person character the list of the keys or the different key the array, the key card array, the 0, the 1, or the 2. Then check and see what value this key has, the one that we're picking up, and then check it off the list. Once it's checked off the list, destroy the key. Okay? And so if we go back to our first person character, what's going to happen is once we pick up the key, that's going to happen. It's going to say, hey, you've now got key number 2 because we've labeled that key as key number 2. Because in the key card, we've given the key card value a value of 2. Alright, so once we've got this, we can go ahead and hit save.
Okay, so for the last part of this, what we're going to need to do is to go ahead and give the door and assign the door a number. Now remember that the door itself, right now we just have it as a static mesh. We are actually going to have to turn the door itself into a blueprint. So it's actually very easy. You just right click on it, you click on the door, and then you will have up here add blueprint. Once you do that, it'll ask you where you want to place it. I have placed mine in a folder called keys since I want to keep my keys and my doors together. It just made more sense for me, but if you're going to have multiple doors, you might as well create a folder called doors. So you see now that we have a door that is a blueprint, so I'm going to double click on the blueprint and open it up, and this is essentially what you should see. What we do want to do to this is we want to add a variable that is a keycard variable. So that's what we're going to call it as a key card. It's going to be an integer. So you're going to go to variable, you're going to hit plus, that's going to create a new variable. You're going to give it the name key card value. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this one since I don't need it. Okay. Once you have the word key card value written in there, you're going to come over here to variable type, and you're going to switch it from a Boolean to an integer. Then you want to go ahead and hit compile. And once you hit compile, you're going to see that you're going to get a keycard value here. And remember that in the previous or earlier, we have given the keycard the value of 2, or this particular key the value of 2. So we want this door to match that key since there's the blue keycard for the blue door, and we want it to be the value of 2. So once there is a key that has, or once the player gets the key that has the value of 2, we will then be able to open this door. So the next thing that we need to do to this is we need to create the motion for this. So if you have not already created the automation for this, you're going to want to do the same thing we did to door number 1, which was open, which is create a level sequence and then have the door be able to open and close. Okay, so the open and the close. So once you have this and you have the door as a blueprint, we're going to then be able to go to the level blueprint and actually write the code for the door. So let's go ahead and do that. Now I've already got the blueprint door information written, but essentially what I had to do was I made a copy of the door that we already have working. Now remember that this is using the key E, so the letter E on your keyboard is what you'll be using to open the first door, and once you have the key, obviously you want to have the character not have to hit another key to be able to open a different door. So we're going to continue to use the E key, but we're going to have to specify a little bit of information prior to that. So what you need to do is copy all of this. So control over it real quick, hit Control C, Control V, or right click on it to say copy. Where is it? There it is, copy, Control C, and then Control V to paste, and you'll get this down here at the bottom. Now the first thing that we'll want to do is go ahead and switch out the animation. Remember, this one is for the green door. Right now yours will probably also say the green door, so you will need this to be the blue door animation. So if you go back to the animation and you have that selected, when you go into the door itself and you open up, when you go back to the level blueprint, actually we should have the level blueprint open. Okay. Once you go back to the level blueprint, you're going to select the two that are there, delete them, and you're going to want to right click and say create a reference of, and then you're going to make a duplicate copy of this and then plug this in. So then what it's doing is it's playing the animation for the blue door and not the animation for the green door. Now you're going to have to do the same thing for the overlaps for the trigger boxes. So you will need to set up a trigger box, and remember that trigger box is underneath volumes, trigger volume. You'll create a trigger box that will expand the length of the door, so as the character walks to it, or they're in the vicinity of the door, that's when the key is going to be able to work. So once you have the trigger box created and in an area that makes sense, watch the previous videos from my theory on how to make the trigger box, how to make it big enough. Once you have it selected, we're going to want to go back to the level blueprint. So we'll go back to Open Blueprint, and here we're going to right click and we're going to say add event from, and we're going to go to collision, and we are going to add both the beginning overlap and the end overlap. And remember that the beginning overlap is going to be for the open, the end overlap is going to be for the close. Now you will notice that I have my begin overlap way over here, and the reason for that is that we need to specify that only only when the first person character has this key are they going to be able to unlock this door. Prior to them having the key, they will not be able to unlock the door. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to add another input action interact. And remember that that is what we have using for the E key. For those that don't remember, if you go back to your blueprint, if you go back to settings and world project, you will see, as soon as this pops up, where is it? There underneath inputs, I have my key that I created, right? The action mapping that I created that was called interact, and I have that going to the E key. All right. So that is essentially what that was. So we'll go back to the level blueprint, and we'll see that that is the interact key. So that's me as the player pressing the letter E. Okay. From there, we're going to send this to cast to first person character. And at this point, you'll want to drag this one way over here because it makes more sense to put it there and have the little blue thing going there. And you're going to want to attach the other actor to the object of the first person character. Now, the reason that we're doing this is obviously this is attached to the first person character, but what we need to do is to the first person player. But what we need to do is we actually need to get the keycard array from the first person character to see what keys they have on them. So this is why we're sending it to cast to first person character. Now to get this, once we have this, we're able to click and drag off, and you're going to be able to type in get key card, and there it is right there. So you're actually getting the array that you need. So the array, remember, is what we set up earlier with the key 0, key 1, key 2, key 3, and the key 2 is the one that we're using to open up the blue door. So once you have that, you're going to drag off of the execute of the first person character and type in for each loop. And what the for each loop is going to do is it's going to check against the objects that are in this to see if we have something, and it's going to go through 1, it's going to go through 0, then it's going to go through 1, then it's going to go through 2, then it's going to go through 3. As many items as we have in the array, it's going to check just that many times. So it's going to cycle through all those numbers and and see if we have a match for any one of those. If we have a match, then what we're going to need to do is we actually need to get it to equal what the door has, right? So now that we know what the character has, we now need to understand what the door has. So to get the door, what we need to do is you're going to actually want to go to the blueprint. So we'll go back. I can't minimize this. There we go. Sorry. It was auto-saving. Okay. So to figure out the door, we'll have to grab the door itself. So now you're going to want to make sure that the door that you're grabbing is the actual blueprint. Remember that you added a blueprint, but you may not have switched the doors out. So you want to make sure that when you click on this door, that it does indeed have a blueprint to it. And inside that blueprint, you will see that it has a keycard value of 2. That's what we set up just a second ago. So when you grab the door, just scroll down in details and see if it does have indeed the default keycard value of 2. If not, what you're going to need to do is grab the door and replace it with the one that you have, right? So get the one that you have, delete it, grab this door, put it back in there. And then when you do that, you probably should have done this prior to creating your cinematic. So I do, sorry about that. You may have to go back and redo your cinematic. If you have to, remember that all you have to do is click on the cinematic, scroll down to open level sequence, and it should be somewhere here. Let's see. There it is. So we'll open up our level sequence, and what you'll do there is you'll just make sure that this door and this object are the same. If they are, great. You now have the cinematic, and you can check and make sure that the object that is here is indeed that, but this does need to be the one with the keycard information, and it just can't be a blank door. Okay, so again, the easiest way to check is to click on the door, scroll down its details panel until you see default keycard. The other thing also is, yeah, let's go ahead and save that just so all these guys are saved. Okay. So once we know that we have the correct door and the correct animation, we're going to want to go back to this, and with the door selected, you're going to want to right click, and you should have this down there at the bottom. Since you have the door selected, it's going to say create a reference to door modern, or that's the name of the door, but it's the blue door for us. So once you have that, I'm going to delete that because I don't want to. You're going to click and drag out and type in keycard value, or just keycard, because remember that we gave the door this as a variable. So we're going to get keycard value, and that is going to then turn that into, so basically what it's doing is it's looking at the door and figuring out what its keycard value is. And from there, what we need to do is then create an integer equal equal. So what you're going to do is drag off of the array index, and you're just going to type in the word equal, and you'll see that you get a function called equal integer. Now I'm not going to select it because that's essentially what this guy is. All right, so you're going to see the equal equal and the two kind of like aqua blue colors right there, which is the integer values. So what it's going to do is it's going to look at the array and see what the first person is carrying. Right, it's going to loop through the entire card. It's going to then see if that is equal to one of the things that the door has. So if the person or if the first person character has the key card for door number 2, and door number 2, or this door right here, is indeed coded for door number 2 or key card number 2, it should then equal. So then what we need to do is we need to get the Boolean from the array element, which is then going to give us back what we have, which is this value right there. And we are going to make sure that we have this value and this value are the same. So if both this and this are the same, that is going to be our branch condition. So off of the loop body from the each loop, you're going to type in if or branch. And basically what we're saying is that if the person holding the key the key card number that we have is the same value as the key card value for the door, then allow us to be able to open the gate. Okay, and always make sure that you have this as start closed. and we've already taken care of the animation. So at this point, that's what we need for our formula, and that's what we needed to get it to work. Okay, so let's check and make sure that this is going to work. So to check this real quick, what I've done is I've set up a situation here where I have a first door and a second door. The first door is going to work with the E key, and what this is going to verify for me is that as a person by myself, as the first person character, that I can open up a normal door without opening up the other door if I don't have the key card. Now I've left the key card behind me, so then that way I can't get the key card, so I can check to see that the door does indeed stay closed when I walk up to it. So if I'm in the trigger box and I don't have the key, will this door open or not open? If it doesn't open, then I can walk back here, grab the key card, then come back to the door and check to see if the door opens. So let's check all these conditions now. So we're going to go ahead and push play. I'm going to walk up. You're going to notice that the key card is still behind me, so I have not collected it yet. So I'm going to walk in. The door does indeed open. The key card's still there. And I'm going to open the door and close the door a couple of times, and we're going to notice that the door back there did not open. So at least in this trigger box, that door did not get affected by the code. So let's walk towards that door. Now I'm going to get really close to the door and I'm going to hit the E key. So the door is indeed not opening. So we have verified that the one door does open, the other door does not open. So let's go grab our key card. Okay, I now have the key card. It's been absorbed into me. So I'm going to walk back to this door and I'm going to hit the E key. Okay, so the door does indeed open this time. All right, so now what I can do is I can walk back to the door, and since I have that quote-unquote key card, I can now open and close the door. So I didn't have to use up the key card. The key card is now with me, and forever I'll be able to, as long as I have that key card with me, or not in my inventory, but as a value on my first person character, I will be able to open and close that door. Now this does also not hinder me from opening and closing the other door. Okay, and when I walk to this door, I can open this door without the other door opening and closing, even though I have the key card with me. Okay, so fantastic. That's basically it. That gets you through everything that you need to be able to open and close doors with key cards. It gives you a pretty robust key card system. You can literally make as many key cards as you want, with as many values as you want, with as many doors with as many values as you want. All you have to do is remember, go to the first person character and keep assigning additional variables to that first person character. I'll show you. You guys already remember, but let me show you again. Where is first person character? There we go. First person BP, first person BP. Right there. All you have to do is go back to keycard. You want another keycard, add another variable, and you can just keep going and making as many as you want. All you have to do is put that code on the doors and on the keys, and you'll be able to have as many different keycards and doors as you want. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.